your mind.
Hello and welcome to Open Your Mind Radio. You have myself, Alan James.
And you have myself, Stephen George. Good evening.
Good evening. It's Sunday the 5th of April 2014.
Easter.
Happy Easter. I hope you have had loads of Easter eggs and you're sick of chocolate because we've so much chocolate at the moment. A few eggs have come in. Thanks for the egg, Steve. I know you gave it to me, son, but I'll take it off him.
He needs it more than you.
When he goes to bed, I'll have a bit.
Yeah.
But happy Easter. And yesterday we had a blood red moon, which is the 4th of the 4th. That's the third blood red moon of the tetrad. So we're going to be talking about that in a few minutes. But before we do that, let's find out what our communication channels are.
Yes, communication channels, please, Mary.
The communication channels are email info@oymireland.com, by phone 046 927 1212, and you can also contact us direct through the OYM chat room.
Thanks, Mary. 046 927 1212 is the number for the studio this evening and every evening. We also have the Facebook page, the anti-social media, if you care to check us out there. You can find links on oymradio.com. You will see the link for the Facebook. You'll see links for YouTube and various other links you can press there as well. You can pop into the shop, grab yourself an old T-shirt or a few bumper stickers for your car. That they are in demand. Get them while they're still available because they are flying out the door, says he, tongue in cheek. But no, seriously, get them for your car. We really mean that. Only a £5. £5 for a £5. What else would you get for a £5? Nothing. Anyway, oymradio.com. If you want to join us on the chat room tonight, you will see the link there on the website. And if you're listening on People's Internet Radio, hi to all of the people in there as well. We will be monitoring both chat rooms for questions for our guest this evening. We're also on the TuneIn Radio app for your listening pleasure on your Android and smart devices and your iPads and your this, that and the others. So all bases covered. Alan.
Steve, cheers for that. Okay, our guest on the show tonight is a man called Stan Deyo. We're going to be talking about global weather and Planet X and probably a few other things with Stan. Stan has a fantastic background in a number of disciplines, so we'll be able to kind of jump around the place and touch base with Stan on a few things. We'll be getting Stan in a few minutes' time, but as usual, we're going to be just talking about a few things that happened during the week. Now, the one thing that happened during the week, I don't know whether you're aware of this, but there was 7 people arrested, water protesters arrested at Mount Argus Grove, Harold's Cross, Dublin on Thursday. I don't know whether you've actually seen that, but there was 7 arrested. There is video on the actual Facebook. If you look around, it's there. I was watching it myself during the week. And the whole group of Garda Síochána turned up and said to them that if they didn't move, that they would be arrested. And the people were saying that this is a peaceful protest. And then the guards just went straight in, as usual. Didn't give a damn, no empathy, didn't care, and just put the cuffs on them and put them in the car. So if you haven't heard about that, I don't know what the state of play is at the moment with the 7. So if you have any information, let us know on the chat room or on email later on, and we'll try and catch up on that. But apparently 7 of them were arrested. I don't know whether they were let go or whether they were kept in or not. But
so guessing they got the water meters installed. So
that was it. Yeah, it's just yeah.
Again, the Garda Síochána, I think personally speaking, they're shooting themselves in the foot because there will come a time where, as has happened in the past, they will go on strike for they're going to have some grievances and they will end up on strike. And they'll be looking for public support, and I don't think it's going to be there.
The public support is not going to be there. And even now, Steve, you're going to tell us about a story that was in the Independent.
Yeah, we've been saying this for a long time. Anyone who's a long-time listener of the show will be aware that we have had Barry Trower on several times, and Barry's a good friend of the show. We always keep in communication with Barry. Emails go, phone calls do go back and forward whenever there is some news or information. And Barry was very instrumental in giving us a lot of information, insider information on the Tetris system. And we have been kind of spreading the news and telling people. Alan even got onto the Gardaí in here in Ireland, and he sent them the information just to make them aware. I think that fell on deaf ears. However, recently, in the Independent.ie, that is an Irish online newspaper, I believe it may have been in the printed version as well. I don't know. I don't subscribe or buy newspapers. So it may have been in the printed version. If it was, maybe someone could just let us know. But it definitely was on the online version. And it says, Gardaí believe their Tetra radio system poses risks to their health. Again, we've been saying this for a long time and putting the information out there. But the independent reporter went on to say, the annual conference of the Association of Garda Sergeants and Inspectors heard that the force may have been used as guinea pigs for the introduction of the system here, without proper studies being carried out in advance on health and safety grounds. The conference was told that there were particular concerns about using the handheld terminals or walkie-talkie sets in Garda patrol cars or stations. Association VP Willie Gleeson said Tetra was an encrypted and safe radio system that could not be hacked.
Can I just jump in? That's not, the hacking's nothing got to do with the safety.
Absolutely. I was going to say, absolutely nothing got to do with it.
Yeah.
You know. But anyway, he said the members were concerned about the health issues and an investigation should be carried out now to determine if action should be taken. Yeah. Will that happen? I don't think so. But the fact that has made it to the paper, they probably will do, it'll be followed up with a quick, they'll get some information from somebody somewhere and put it out to say, oh yes, the system is completely safe, has been fully tested and conforms to certain specifications and poses no risks to any of the Gardaí at all whatsoever. However, we do know that this is not the truth, and I am happy to report that on the foot of that story, Alan, who is always he's on the ball, and he was just saying to me before we went live there this evening that he has already sent the information and links to the chap in the Independent, the news reporter in the Independent.ie. So when that chap goes in to work, he may be off for the weekend. So when he goes in on Tuesday morning, he's going to have an email from OYM congratulating him on the news story, plus giving him more information where you can certainly get some backup, and also a phone number so he can actually contact Barry Trower himself, and maybe he will do a follow-up story. With a bit of luck, he will do a follow-up story, and it will all come to light. But I don't know, my spidey senses are saying he probably will try and run a story, but it may not come to fruition. It could be blocked at the pass. We just don't know. But it's nice to see that the story actually made it into print anyway, alerting the public to the dangers and also the guards themselves, because I think in one part of the story it does actually say that when they're using the radios in the car, it's kind of a similar situation to being inside a microwave oven. So yeah, let's see where it goes. But at least the information's out there. So kudos to that Independent.ie reporter.
I like the way the Willie Gleeson chap said that it couldn't be hacked. That's nothing got to do with the safety. It's funny how they just throw that curveball in when they talk about it being hacked rather than the safety of it. Now,
exactly, yeah.
Remember what Barry said? They used to have Tetra in the States, but the police in the States stopped using it because of the danger. Now, I also sent them a link to Tetra Watch in the UK because a lot of the UK police are coming down with Tetra symptoms. Now, I just, while you were talking there about that story, I just got this idea that the government might turn around and go, we know it's a 17, 18-year experiment and it's supposed to end in 2016.
That's correct.
So a politician turns around and goes, hey, guess what? Guess what we'll do? We'll stop using Tetra in 2016.
Or what they'll do is they'll say that'll be on the election manifesto for 2016.
Yeah.
There's no if there is public outcry about this the Tetra system, what a great thing to say on the door. Well, if you elect me or if you re-elect me, I'll put a stop to this.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, as you say, it was in the States from what we've been told, and then they've gone back to the older version. And you have enthusiasts who listen to the different police stations in different states over in the US of A. But I mean, the whole system went digital here a number of years ago because it was alleged that criminals with scanners were monitoring the police. So therefore, whenever you committed a crime, you could make your escape. You could plan your escape because you knew exactly where the Gardaí were at any moment in time. Well, I'm sorry, anyone who would have listened to scanners back in the day.
Well, not you.
Well, not me.
No, not
Jeez,
you.
that's illegal.
No, you couldn't do that.
That is illegal.
You couldn't do that.
No, but anyone who did would have known that a lot of times when the Gardaí got a call, They were either going on their break or they were having a rest or something else, and they always wanted to put it off for someone else, or can someone else do that maybe after the break, or we'll have a look at it in a little while. Unless it was one of their own. If the call came out on the from the controller that it's a member's house, they were there in their droves. But that's all I heard anyway.
That's allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly.
Okay. Right, okay, onwards and upwards. Right, Nancy Leader at zetatalk.com. Remember a few weeks ago we were talking about Putin was going to make a big announcement.
That's right, yeah.
And all the media was told to wait around, and it was all trucks heading to Red Square in Moscow, and they were setting up stands and everything else. Well, basically, according to Nancy Leader anyway, that big announcement was supposed to be on March 16th. But the announcement never arrived, and Nancy Leader's contacts, for want of a better word, said that the announcement was to kick off the admission about Nibiru, Planet X. But it was distracted by Kiev's latest attempt to plunge the world into World War III on their behalf. This was once again delayed. So, again, if Putin was going to make the announcement, allegedly, apparently, according to zetatalk.com, he was going to mention Nibiru and Planet X. I thought myself it might be about disclosure, but maybe that was going to be too much. But so we'll sit and wait and see what happens. See if Putin actually does finally make the attempt to actually tell us something. Steve.
Yes.
Right. Last thing on the list, and then we'll get Stan in.
Yes. Alan I think Alan has asked me to mention this because he knows I can't pronounce it. But I'll give it a go. Here we go. Off to a bad start. Super blood red moon yesterday. Economic collapse is being predicted by the super
Shemitah.
The super Shemitah. Does the super Shemitah have a cape? I don't know.
Right.
This is more news on September 2015, isn't it?
Right, okay. Basically what it is that we have the tetrad of the 4 blood red moons. We had 2 last year, we'll have 2 this year. Yesterday was the 3rd of the blood red moon, and the 4th blood red moon will be in September, but that's the super Shemitah blood red moon, which means that it's 7 of 7. And they always say, what they're saying is, now you have to remember, the New World Order are great at orchestrating things as well, so take this with a pinch of salt, but the chap who was talking about this said, we know the year that 9/11 happened, which was 2001, and it happened in September. 7 years, add 7 years to that, and you have 2008. And in 2008, we had the financial collapse, which was in September. So we have another 7 years on that, which is 2015, and they're saying in September, something's going to happen then as well. Now, I'm sitting on the fence with this one because you know what it's like. You go out and start mentioning the dates and everything else, and it doesn't happen, and people start saying, oh, you said September. So we're just letting you know what they're saying out there. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But there are rumours about the financial collapse, and I know Stan knows about this because he's talked on the Hagman and Hagman radio show about this potential collapse and people not being aware of it. So in between probably July, September, or maybe the last quarter of this year, is a possibility, we don't know. But you have to keep your eyes to the skies and your eyes on the internet and see what's going on. But so you can check it up yourself. A super Shemitah year. This will be the last of the. It'll be super blood red moon in September. So you can check it out yourself and see what you think. Right. What we do is Alan and Steve's week we're going to do at the end of the show. So we'll get our guest on, Stan Deyo. Now Steve's going to tell us all about Stan.
Well, I'm going to tell you as much as I can.
Okay.
I don't know it all.
Okay.
I don't know everything. Anyway, yeah, our guest this evening is Stan Deyo. Stan has held the above top secret security clearance and worked undercover for the FBI. He was part of an exclusive black project headed by Dr. Edward Teller, specialising in the development of flying saucer technology. Stan's diverse background encompasses computer programmer of mainframes in 7 languages, PC and Macintosh, senior systems analyst, research physicist, both formally and self-educated, marine architect, self-educated, advanced propulsion engineer for marine, air and spacecraft, author of 3 books and 6 scientific papers, partner in Deyo Enterprises, LLC, a research and development website, hosting, book publishing and book distribution company for the last 35 years, amateur archaeologist in the Middle East, explored the real Indiana Jones caves in the Israel. I just don't know what that word is. Qumran.
Qumran region in Israel.
Qumran region of Israel, right. I'll have to go there, live there for a while and be able to pronounce it. Anyway, Stan also done a TV documentary. Sorry, he's a TV documentary television host for several shows on Tesla, Eye of the Storm, and a series of 3 highly rated shows on Channel 9 in Perth, that's in Australia. UFOs are here, UFOs, Deyo and you, and UFOs are back. University lecturer in 3D computer animation and graphic art, a biblical student, and finally a public lecturer on world events. That is an impressive biography.
And I bet you could probably add another 5 or 6 onto that. He's a dad and probably a granddad as well. Good evening, Stan. How are you?
Good evening, Alan and Steve. Thanks for that great intro. Yes, I am a granddad. I'm a great-granddad. In fact, I have, what do we have now, 15 grandchildren.
15 grandchildren, my God. That keeps you busy, along with all this other list of stuff that you do as well. That's fantastic. Well, Stan, is there anything you want to add to that? Because I know that you have such a diverse range of knowledge in different subjects, as we've made a list out there. And we can kind of bounce around. But tell us more about kind of the radio stuff that you do.
Well, each week I do a show here with Doug and Joe Hagman, the Hagman Report, on a Tuesday evening, 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And I think you can click onto that and listen to the current updates that I bring to the show with the boys. Of late, we've talked about a couple of things that I discovered last year. In the Middle East, you were talking about the Qumran. There was a cave there called the Cave of the Wadi Haqiqah. Try to say that while you're so...
I'm so glad that was not on the list. I wouldn't have got it.
Well, that was where Vendell Jones, the prototype for Indiana Jones, actually was exploring and excavating a couple of caves there to look for the Ark of the Covenant. And Dr. Jones is a family friend of ours in Texas. And so he gave me the map to follow when I was over in Israel to go and dig into the cave of the Qumran there, the cave of the Wadi Haqiqah, which is the cave of the columns. And I had to go in there between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. on the day I went, so that the sun would shine through a hole in the roof of the cave and it would illuminate a spot on the sand or the floor of the main cave where you had to get into that by swinging on a rope. Anyway, I got in there, and I was to scrape the sand aside underneath where the circle of light was from the top of the cave. And sure enough, there was a metal plate there, like he told me, and I lifted that plate up, and it opened up a stairwell, or like a ladder, down into the lower regions where the secret cave was built by the priests of Zadok. And, got to see that, and... it was interesting. So were the creatures that dropped on my shoulder occasionally there, like a bat and some other stuff. But that's in the area where you're talking about, in the Qumran. Now, I went on from there years later to, in fact, in June of last year, to discover the location of the Garden of Eden, the real one. And you can see it and go there today. There's no thing missing. It's got the walls intact, the water supplies, everything. And so I talked about that on the Hagman Show. Also talked about a possible name now then for the Antichrist, quite different than what a lot of other people have been saying, that his name will be a derivative of Solomon, King Solomon, and I gave a lot of reasons why. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of what I'm doing now is still connected to the Middle East and, archaeology and to Africa and things like that.
I think there's going to be there's a big debate as to where people believe where the Ark of the Covenant is, because we have somebody over here, John Anthony Hill, or Modib as he's called. He's done massive research into it, and he believes that the Ark of the Covenant is actually buried on the hill of Tara over here in Ireland. I don't know whether you've heard about that one, Stan.
No, I haven't, and I don't know. I kind of subscribe to one that says it's closer at home there, around the Temple Mount somewhere, perhaps underneath it or off the southeast wall underneath the rubble heap there. It used to be Solomon's Temple. But anyway,
yeah,
who knows?
I've also heard that it's actually buried somewhere in Wales as well. So there's so many different people that have the different kind of research done. And so there's, wherever it is, I'm sure it's safe anyway. But
well,
okay.
look, I checked out back. It's not out in my backyard, so I can tell you that for sure.
And I don't have it here in the room anyway, so that's fine. Stan, thanks a lot for coming on. I mean, you're a heavy hitter over there in the States, and there's a lot of radio stations that bring you on because of your expertise and your knowledge. And the reason why we asked you to come on is there's been a lot of things going on a climate level globally with sinkholes, with countries being flooded, with tectonic plate movements, volcanoes. Some of them have been sitting idle for a long time, and all of a sudden they've become active. And we have tsunamis like Phuket. And it's amazing what's been going on. I mean, some people have been watching the weather and they just see it as normal, and they just think, oh, that's just the way it is. But I know you probably have more, sinister things that you feel are going on. Can you tell us what your take is on it?
Well, I don't know that I'd call it sinister. The things I look at are primarily things that we can prove from physics and from astrophysics. The sun is definitely a driver in our climate and in our weather, obviously. And because the sun has been erratic the end of this 24th solar cycle, we're seeing a lot of erratic behavior in the planet's weather, in our magnetic field as well. We have at the moment 2 north poles separated by about half a planet almost. There's a link to that on our show images page in the top right-hand picture. You can see the red part of the picture of the Earth is where the 2 north poles are, and the south pole is in the process of splitting as well, but just running behind. Now that's linked, we think, to not only the natural weakening of the Earth's magnetic field, but to the reversals that occur in the sun itself and its magnetic field every 11 years. Now, the sun linking to us is affecting the planet in more ways than just changing the north-south pole. The planet is expanding, and we don't know whether this is going to stop or whether it will make another quantum leap and increase its diameter maybe 10-15%. We know it did this around 2150 BC, but that's what split the continents apart, much in contrast to what they teach you in the uni. The Pangea breakup occurred because of a sudden expansion by 25% of the diameter of the planet. It occurred over a couple of years, but it did expand rapidly, and it wasn't inches per year, as they tell you about tectonic plate movement. Now, the reason this is important with the question you asked is that as the planet expands, imagine it's like a balloon with a thin surface being the surface of the balloon. When it expands, it stretches the surface. Now, this reduces the amount of pressure that, dirt has on its neighbor. The compression of dirt is lessened as you expand and stretch the planet's surface. This causes a lot of those sinkholes, in my opinion, around the planet that we're hearing that are suddenly much more numerous than they were before. Now, the sinkholes are caused by, the immediate cause is by fluid flows, broken pipes, streams that suddenly become very effective and erode the dirt under the surface, and it collapses into a pit or a hole on the dirt and even in the ocean. So people say, oh, well, it's just water erosion that's doing that. But the water erosion, that just water erosion, is caused when pipes break due to stretching of the planet and stretching thereby of the pipes, and also opening up of fissures that allow water to flow where it didn't before. So, the two are connected. And the volcanoes you'll see occur along the tectonic plate borders. And that is because the stretching is activating those regions and opening up magma to flow to the surface. And you're right, the number of volcanoes is increasing. It has increased maybe 400% since the 1870s, I think it is. Now, the earthquakes are also increasing in places that are quite effective to populations. This has occurred over the last 110 years. All these things are on exponential curves. If you plot them, they're more and more and more and more. Now, that's connected to the sun. That's connected to the normal aging of our planet. And I've put forward a whole theory on this, or hypothesis would be the more appropriate name, on our website there on the show images page, which I've sent you a link to. you can see something called hollow planet stars and galaxies. And in that discussion, it's a preamble to a paper I'm writing called, the nature of gravity, the fluid nature of gravity. And in there, it shows that planets, moons, stars, galaxies, all that we know, expand as they age. And, of course, expanding universe is not a new thought, but expanding planets and stars is. And that's where I take us to, okay, Mars is expanded, our moon is expanded, the Earth is expanded catastrophically without changing the mass. It's just stretched, which means that there are voids, shells inside these stretching things, explaining why NASA said that when they impacted a satellite of the moon, which they put up there, into the surface of the moon to ring it, like so they could see the seismographic ripples, that it rang for an hour like a bell, because it was not solid all the way through. It was a thin surface and then, a void and then perhaps something else inside that. So all these things are explained and work together to explain why we're having sinkholes, volcanoes, earthquakes, and problems with our climate all over the world, and it's going to increase.
So this expansion that's taken place, does that tie into the expanded Earth theory that people talk about?
Yes, it does. Now, the people that argue against this in the scientific community say, look, the mass of the Earth has not changed. We haven't collected enough to expand that much. But they are ignoring the postulate that says that the Earth has expanded, kept the same mass, but it's like blowing up a balloon. And except in this case, we have a balloon within a balloon within a balloon, and we have voids or empty spaces, shells in between these inner globes, if you wish, of the planet. I agree with it, and I've seen animations that were done to illustrate this with the moon and with Mars and with one of the moons of, I think, Saturn. You can see all these things if you visit the cartoonist named Neil Adams. He's animated a number of these things, and you can see that on our website. We have links to his animations, which are astounding in themselves, showing how Mars, used to be smaller, and it expands it in an animation so you can see it growing and shrinking. And same thing for the Earth, and I think he's got about 9 clips of animations. But if you'll go there and to the Show Images page and down close to the bottom, second row from the bottom, first picture, you'll see kind of half a planet, cut in half, and a blue like plate around that that's cut in half. It's called hollow planet stars and galaxies. And you go in there, you'll be able to see down toward the bottom there, second row again, the links to Neil Adams expanding Earth and other things. It's just, amazing, but I do support that.
Okay. Based on the fact that we're looking at the expanded Earth, and I'll call it expanded Earth theory for want of another word, would that kind of explain the whole kind of dinosaur scenario where the Earth was actually smaller, so gravity was different at the time?
Yes, and actually, I used to think that would mean that gravity would be less because of the increased spin rate of the planet, conserving momentum. But I don't think so anymore. I think that the dinosaurs had thick legs, strong bodies, and dragonflies were 4 feet in diameter because they had to combat a stronger gravity. And that would mean then, of course, gravity now is less than it was then. But in those days, the increased gravity would have forced more oxygen into the living things, plants, and, into animals, and then the carbon dioxide into the plants. But this does tie with a lot of what geologists and archaeologists are finding.
No, that's interesting. The climatic changes that we're experiencing at the moment with the sinkholes and the flooding and volcanoes, the argument that I normally get off people is that one or two people who I've talked to about this, they've said, well, they've only started to keep records up to a certain time, and how do you know that maybe 500 years ago this was going on as well? So what would be the argument there? Is that the case that this is just a natural thing, or are we actually experiencing things that we haven't experienced for a long time?
Well, when you say a natural thing, I don't believe in the hypothesis being put forward by, say, U.S. proponents here, politicians, about, cow gas and human endeavors causing global warming. If that's the case, how do you explain the global warming that's occurring on the 5 inner planets and possibly even Uranus itself? these things are all happening as a result of our sun. Now, you can make a case for there being a 500-year periodicity to, say, the orbit of Pluto and in combination with the inner planets and with Jupiter, and these cause certain, climatic changes on the sun itself. But what has happened since 1992, we've been having new bands of ultraviolet come out of the sun, which tells us that the sun's nuclear chemistry is changing, and it's something that has not happened before. So these people who say, oh, it's happened before, they don't know what they're talking about. We are in a very dynamic state of change with our sun at the moment, so much so that they're saying, will the sun's diameter start to increase? Will it throw off ejecta into the whole solar system? Will it blow off a cloud of dust and start its growth toward the red giant stage, which is where it's going eventually? And before you go, oh, yeah, but that's 100 million years from now or something, understand that there are 4 leading physicists at the moment in the world saying that we've got it all wrong, that the age of the universe isn't like 15 billion years, not at all, because it's measured on the constancy of the velocity of light normally, but the velocity of light has been decreasing since the Big Bang, so much so that if you say how fast was it in the Big Bang right after it, it was 10 with 25 zeros after it times what it is now. It's huge difference, and this makes a difference in our dating of radiological dating of things. So if the sun is going to go into its red giant stage, this can occur in thousands of years, hundreds perhaps, but not in millions and billions of years. Everything is compressed when we change this time factor in the current cosmological model of the universe.
So is there something that could be affecting the planet at the moment? Is there something in our solar system that might be causing this effect?
A number of things. The sun itself is just part of a natural aging. Things grow big as they age, as I've said before. However, I know that you're probably leaning toward the planet X or some large mass intruding into the inner solar system, and that may well be. I have not seen proof myself, but I have taken the effort to use the normal equations that astronomers use to calculate orbits, and I've looked and said, look, in fact, you'll see on the show images page, second row, in the middle of that row, there's what's called the Deyo formula for the semi-major axes of the planets. Now, what that's saying is that I've developed a formula that's better than any at the moment by heaps that astronomy has ever put forward to predict where planets are in our solar system, and also to predict where there are empty orbits and where other things may orbit further out than Neptune or Pluto. And using that formula, I said, all right, let's see if this talk about a planet X with a 3,600-year period, let's see if there's anything out there. And if you look at the second row first graph, you'll see that I found at around 72 times the distance of the Earth from the Sun that there is an orbit, believe it or not, that's empty, but it can hold a planet, and it is has a period of 3,600 years. Now, that really made me pay attention to this Planet X hypothesis, because, they've tried to tie it to the Mayan or the Aztec calendar, and they said, look, we're coming to that period of time after what Zechariah Sitchin wrote, but I don't know that Zechariah Sitchin got it translated correctly. There's only about 12 to 15 people in the world that can translate what he was working on. So, if this thing is here, I plotted that it would have to be coming in from the southern part of our solar system, and as such would probably not be visible to the northern hemisphere amateur astronomers, or even the government astronomers, until a certain time when it's very close. Now, I calculated that if this thing exists, if it's coming into our system, it can have 2 kinds of orbit. It can be like a planet does, but just a long, stretched out, elliptical orbit, which would mean that the sun was basically sort of in the center of its orbit, and it would never get close to the sun. But on the other hand, it may have what's called a cometary-style orbit, which means it'll come very close to the sun when it reaches its perihelion, or close to sun point in its orbit. If that's the case, it will enter. If it's entering now, it will enter our inner 5-planet orbits and stay there, come in and exit for a period of 9 to 11 years. So we'll see in the next 9 to 11 years, we should be able to see images of it somewhere on the southern hemisphere's telescopes to tell us that this body is there. Now, something is out there. We know that even NASA says that. Something, a big something, is out in our solar system, undetected, which is squashing or perturbing the orbits of Uranus and Neptune and Pluto, which is either a planet or, escape moon of Neptune. But we know that those orbits have been squashed, and I see that in my equations as well. So that might be Planet X. That might be what's causing a disruption to the sun, and hence disruption to all the planets, global warming, if you wish, and our own weather, which we're most concerned with because of the droughts and floods and odd weather that it's producing.
Okay, and because obviously some of the information I've seen on the internet, they've said that Planet X has already done the perihelion, and people are beginning to take, there's massive amounts of photos out there. Whether they're real or fake, I don't know. But, apparently some of them are from reputable people who are saying they can and have taken photos of Planet X after it done the perihelion, and it's due in probably, this is what they're saying, probably next year maybe. We should be seeing it by probably March next year.
Well, I'd certainly like to see the proof of that. I'm not particularly excited about letting that ruin our day, if you know what I mean. But
yeah, no, that's okay. It's out there. We had a number of guests on, the likes of Bob Fletcher, and we've had Joseph Cipollone on. We've had a number of guests on who've talked about this. And they've all kind of done their own research, plus the information that we've come across on the internet, which we'll send you over some links anyway, and then you can have a look.
All right, thank you.
The one thing that we know for certain, or we're pretty sure, the scientists are pretty sure about, is that we are overdue for coronal mass ejection, a solar flare from the sun. Now, a lot of people have heard about the Carrington effect in 1859, and I know we had a near miss in 2012. And if we do get hit, and it's depending on what side of the planet is facing the sun at the time, and the effect that will have. Have you heard anything more about the potential of that happening and the solar flare activity on the sun?
Well, the effect of it will be like 100 times what a nuclear bomb's EMP effect would be detonated 200 miles off the surface of the Earth. It'll be huge. And when you say a coronal mass ejection, you're really meaning to say, I think, the massive Earth-directed halo impact one, which means that we're right in the center of it. And that is not a happy time for the people of Earth. Now, that actually ties to some biblical prophecy in the book of the Revelation of John, where he talks about a third of the oceans, boiling, and a third of the green grass and trees being killed, and the fish, dying. But it says a third. And it's something to do with the sun getting very hot. Now, if we had a big flare like you're talking about, we would probably see the light from it about 8 minutes after it actually happened on the surface of the sun. And sometime between that moment and the next 12 to 15 hours, maybe as long as 24 hours, the storm would hit us, the particles ejected right after that flare. Those would hit the surface of the Earth over a period of several hours, not days. And that means that the side of Earth that's facing the sun at that point will get fried, in this EMP and possibly extra heat. Now, it won't be exactly half the planet, because the radiation and the particles coming from the sun are virtually coming in a straight line as far as we're concerned here on the Earth. And some of them will be glancing blows. They won't hit the Earth direct. They'll be shallow and reflect off of the atmosphere. So as the Earth turns during that exposure time, perhaps only a third and not a full half of the planet would be exposed, and certainly would be in a lot of trouble. Now, that's kind of the way I see it. That event would be somewhat severe, yes.
Okay, and does that tie into the biblical prophecy regarding the 3 days of darkness?
It could well do. I kind of touched on that just a few minutes ago when we were talking about the sun and its expansion. It may throw off a cloud of debris, because in the Old Testament there's a mention of a cloud forming around the sun, causing darkness, and so dark that the light from the sun only dimly illuminates the moon, and it looks like it's color of blood because of this cloud surrounding the sun. So these pieces do fit. Don't you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, that's just it's interesting because it kind of ties in to other things that have been said regarding Planet X and the tail of Planet X, and this red dust as well. And that could be something to do with it as well. The other thing that you mentioned there was about the animals dying. Now, we're seeing an awful lot of that at the moment globally. And we know Fukushima is still going off and the radiation's there, and that's dangerous in itself. There's obviously other areas that we've had wildlife dying, not just the whales and the fish, but birds falling out of the sky, bees dying and everything else. What do you put that down to? What do you think that might be?
Well, I don't know whether you can put them all down to one single thing, but certainly the radiation from Fukushima, we can directly link that to diseases and problems with the marine life population in the Pacific, and I'm sure with various amounts of increased radiation in the food chain and the rain over the United States, and Alaska is part of that, and Canada. There are other factors in the climate. With the magnetic field changing, I think it's confusing a lot of the whales and birds who use magnetite in their brain to navigate, and so they're beaching or they're flying in places they shouldn't go because their whole navigation system is messed up due to the magnetic field changes. Also, with the climate changes, with droughts, this will drive living populations of animals and people to other places to get water. And this is a serious and growing problem, as you know. I mean, like in California, I mean, they've never seen strife like this before over there with the drought. And, people, I'm sure, are thinking, well, I'm getting out of here because I'm not paying the penalty of whatever it is, a huge legal fine if they use more water than they're supposed to. People are limiting the number of showers baths they take a week. And, this is just individuals. But over there, the major villain in the usage of water is industry, agricultural industry, because 85% of the water that California uses goes into growing stuff for the rest of the United States and other countries that import the California goods. Anyway, societies have historically moved out of their regions to other regions to get water. Now, we should be able to plan better and have desalination plants on the coastal areas that are affected by drought, so that, like in Israel, you could have these super-duper desalinator plants that pump water in out of the sea, convert it to drinkable water and throw the salt water back into the sea, and, Bob's your uncle. It's causing a lot of these things.
Yeah, that's one of the questions that I have down there. I mentioned to you before the show. Over here in Ireland, we have a billionaire, and our listeners know this, called Dennis O'Brien, and they're trying to privatise the water over here. And obviously, water is now blue gold. It's in big demand. And we already pay for this through our taxes. Now, obviously, the concern seeing California in a drought and having drought issues, and obviously the likes of cities like Detroit as well, they've knocking off the water over there as well. There seems to be something going on globally regarding the water, because all of a sudden there seems to be this big interest in it. And in Ireland, I mean, we get rain on a regular basis over here, and they're trying to say that they're like over in the States. I know in Oregon there's a guy arrested and locked up for 3 months for collecting rainwater. And over here now, we believe in Ireland, there's our Irish Water, this private company, are trying to say now that they want to have some control over that as well, which, for Irish people, they have their own way to tell them where to kind of stick their ideas. But obviously, from a global point of view, have you heard any more of other countries having issues with water? And do you think this is something that's kind of creeping up regarding this privatisation and this demand for water, and they're trying to, control it in some way?
Well, yeah, look, the entire planet, because of the climatic change due to whatever, I think it's due to the sun's change, but the climatic change is moving rainfall where it traditionally used to be a lot into areas where it wasn't. The problem, like, you're talking about taxing or make it illegal to collect your water. When Holly and I were down in Australia, we lived in Victoria there in the countryside in a farm, and the government, the local shire government, wanted to put rain gauges on our tanks that collected rain from the sky to water us and our livestock. They didn't ever get to the point of passing it, but they were trying to do it then to tax us on rainwater that fell on our property. And when we wanted to dig a dam to, stockpile water from a well, we had to be sure that we had to have a government inspector come out to be sure that we did not block the free flow of water from the countryside around us downhill. And they're doing that same kind of nonsense over here in Colorado. Until this year, it was illegal to catch your rainwater, same as in Oregon. And in the Middle East, the next big war, they say, may not be over oil or energy. It may well be the water wars, which is why some of Shimon Peres's former cabinet members, like Nimrod Novak, they've been going around and buying up water rights in neighboring countries, in Turkey and in Egypt. Now, how good these contracts will be in the near future because of political and military actions, I'm not sure. But the fact remains that they have seen, 15, 20 years ago, the coming water crisis. Now, when I say they've seen it, this Nimrod Novak and the Merhav Corporation, they have invested hundreds of millions in making these contracts and getting other people to do the same to try to secure water for Israel. Now, they knew about this a long time ago. So these things that we're seeing now, the powers that be, if you want to call them that, worldwide have known about this and have been making their own preparations and then trying after that to make preparations for the population. Now, as far as privatizing, I don't know whether that's going to be any worse than dealing with a government. Privatization, you'll have a corporation with a board of directors. So do you dance with the devil, or go with this new guy in Ireland? I don't know. It's definitely water is going to be like blue gold, as you said.
Yeah, well, they knew about the government over here in Ireland, and the previous governments knew about it over here because they set up a system where any new houses that were built were they had where the shores were for putting in water meters. They were pre-designed for the meters. So they knew exactly what they were doing a few years ago. Going back to probably the early 2000s, they knew that this was going to take place.
Right.
So any new buildings, any new houses that were built, they had to have a pre-designed shore to take an actual water meter. And that in itself is a problem because there's concerns over the safety of the water meters. And there's big issues over here in Ireland, but we already pay water we pay for it through our taxes, and they're billing us again. And there's other taxes being like motor tax, road tax, which we pay over here. A percentage of that has been put into the Irish water fiasco, and that's what it is. It's a big fiasco over here because people are just determined that we're not paying for it. But what we've come across on our research was that we talk about the financial collapse or the potential financial collapse coming and the fiat currency and the money that's out there. And what we've come across, I don't know how true this is that the powers that be, they've built up a massive wealth. But when the fiat currency we know has no value, they want to go off and buy tangible assets like land, like resources. And we had John Perkins on the show who has wrote a book called Confessions of an Economic Hitman, where they come in and they strip mine each country of their assets. And this is what's happening over here in Ireland, and water is one of many that we've had kind of stripped from us, or they're trying to strip water from us. Have you heard anything similar to that as to, is this their plan to asset strip, numerous countries of whatever assets they have?
They've certainly been doing it in the United States, with our intellectual property that's been strip mined over by the Chinese and by the Germans and Europe in general. Australia, with its natural resources and iron and sheep and various other things, Chinese have been sucking that up. So you're not alone there in Ireland. Your resources are being sequestered by the globalists. Now, the new fiat currency you're talking about, whatever they call it, will eventually be a digital one, and I think it will happen suddenly when the banks collapse. And right now, the Irish people, I'm sure, as you've said, are very upset with their government and the crazy things that they're, sequestering from the population or owning, and the taxes are just unbelievable. So the Irish people probably would not be too unhappy if the government was disbanded in place of a new global government that promised them the earth and said, we'll get rid of all your taxes and, we'll distribute resources equally across the planet or whatever, and you'll get your share of water. This is going to be a deceptive situation, but people will race, run, rush to get rid of their existing, corrupt governments. This is something that we've seen happening for 50 years, gradually, bit by bit. So, yeah, we're looking rather soon, probably toward the end of this year, of the world economy, if not before, being thrown into chaos. But it'll take a trigger. And I think that trigger will be in the Middle East with an Israeli preemptive attack on Iranian resources or, like the nuclear facilities, which will precipitate an immediate conflict. And I think it will be because nuclear weapons will be involved. At this point, the world will be in panic. The world economy will be, in chaos, and people will see their bank accounts closed as banks try to reconcile, what assets are real. And, then the new world government will be offered as a solution. The new world economy will be offered as a solution. And that's where we're all being driven like sheep into that gate. There's just no turning back now.
And do you think that this Nasara is just a ruse or a setup for the people to get them all kind of excited over something that might never happen, and if it does, it's going to be a global currency controlled by the cabal?
What was the first part of that question? The Nasara?
The Nasara, they're supposed to be the global reset. Have you heard about that?
Okay, yeah. And what about it?
Yeah, do you think that's just it's a rouge by the cabal to get people excited or get them to buy into the whole global the global reset and the global currency? I think the Rimba, I think it's called the currency is called the Rimba. I've seen images on the internet regarding China talking about, I think it was the Rimba of Russia, and basically they were talking about a global reset and a global currency. And the Nasara has been going on for so many years now. They're talking about, a whole financial reset, and the computer systems and the banks are ready to go, and we're nearly there, and they're not quite, and we're nearly there. Everything's nearly there, but they never get there. And one of our guests said that he was monitoring that for the last 25 years, and he gave up on it. So
I agree with him. Look, all these things, the major crisis curves of the planet, whether it be, earthquakes, volcanoes, economic collapse, threat of nuclear war, disease, all these, famine, weather, chaos, all these things have been accelerated in the press way ahead of their actual threat. They're coming, but these things have been accelerated in advance by the globalists to get people to turn power over to the globalists so they can then, in their opinion, the globalists, solve planet Earth for the good of everyone. But yes, we've been seeing it. It's coming in the various media, and it's been to drive us to turn authority over to the globalists. So I agree with that fellow that you had on. That's definitely what's happening.
Yeah, okay, so something to watch out for. We have a few questions in, so I'm going to pass you over to Steve, Stan, and Steve will ask you the questions there.
Yeah, Stan, very, very kind of poignant information. There's a lot of information there that's kind of food for thought for a lot of people. It certainly has me thinking, because some of the stuff that I've been looking at just before I get into the questions, as I say, by the title of the show, Open Your Mind, we look at all sorts of information. There's nothing that we won't look at, we will kind of go down any rabbit hole and see where it leads us. And over the past week, I was sent some information about a fortnight ago, and over the past week I've been kind of looking at that information. And this information that I have been looking at is the flat Earth theory. And there's kind of, that kind of come into my mind when you were talking about the planet expanding like a balloon being blown up. And again, that made sense. That would kind of make sense in explaining the likes of sinkholes and stuff like that. But have you looked into any of that, the flat Earth stuff? And if
yes,
so, what?
Yes, look, I don't support that. There's just too much evidence to the contrary. if we've got a flat Earth, do we have a flat Jupiter, flat Mars? I mean, come on.
Well, I don't know. This is new to me. As I say, until 2 weeks ago, I had never even heard this. It never came up on any radar. But from what I'm like, one of our questions is from Chris, and Chris is kind of wondering how would we survive the blast, obviously, if the sun was to throw out so much radiation. And then based on that question, I mean, some of the stuff that I've seen during the week was kind of saying that other people had done various different studies in relation to the distance from the Earth to the Sun. And some people were saying, depending on what century you were in, it was so many thousands of miles, millions of miles. And now they're saying it's 93 million. Is it million kilometers or miles? But they're saying, based on pictures that they've seen above clouds, it looks like that it may be closer to that. Again, I don't know. I don't have the technology to do that.
I support the hypothesis that the sun is expanding, as everything else in the universe appears to be doing. Now, measuring the diameter of the sun from the Earth has been a tricky process because of variations in the outer layers of the sun's surface, because that throws off some of your measurements. However, there is a growing bit of support for the fact that the sun over the last 2 centuries has been seen to grow bigger in diameter. And if that's the case, then, depending upon how many miles that was, the Earth would be, closer to the surface of the sun because the sun's surface is moving out toward us. I think in the long term, the Earth will move further away from the sun, but as the sun's surface or its diameter expands, this may not be an issue because we may have a relative distance to that's passing on the heat of the sun to us. It's interesting in the Bible, in the book of the Revelation of John, toward the end of it, it talks about the Earth and the universe as we know it, and the stars, passing away in a great fervent heat. But not to worry, it says, because there will be a new heaven and a new earth to replace that. Now, to me, that sounds almost like like modern cosmology of brain theory or parallel universes, where our universe is melted down and becomes part of, a concentric universe that's already around us. These things, are on the books, and that's within 1,000 years of now.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a religious person, really. I'm kind of more spiritual than religious, so, I mean, some of the stuff that will be in the Bible, we've kind of looked at some of the passages, and again, there's some stuff that I could kind of identify with, but there's other stuff that I would maybe perceive it differently than other people. And I've had conversations at the door with Mormons, and it depends on how the passage is read, I suppose. So I wouldn't put too much credence into the Bible. Again, that's just me personally speaking.
Well, would you put credence in the Hopi prophecies?
Again, hard to say, because I don't know. I mean, like, people will get prophecies, and I don't know if they're getting it from a higher power, or if there is such a higher power. I haven't a clue. I don't know. As I'm on a journey, and I don't know from one day to the next what I perceive to be true today. I could perceive it to be incorrect tomorrow. Depending on loads of different factors. I
know. Well, look, obviously I think a little bit more toward the Bible point of view, but I grew up that way. My father was Jewish, and in fact, a lot of Ireland, Celts and Danes were from the tribes of Israel, so I would assume that a lot of the Irish folk study the good book as a result of that. It's an individual thing, isn't it, where you go after you die, if you do. And for me, like a number of other people have had the experience, I nearly died in 1969 and did leave my body and realized that we live outside the body in a form that's much more sentient than what we have in the body here. And so that was a turning point for me. I certainly started looking at the Bible after I got back in my body.
Yeah, well, see, now, again, I don't know. I mean, that to you is a very real thing. I've never had a near-death experience, and I don't know that maybe if I were to have such an experience, that I wouldn't turn to the Bible. I don't know. But as you say, it is kind of an individual thing, and I don't really want to get bogged down in kind of religion,
Sure.
because I know that the people who are tuning in, they're not really, they probably don't want to go down the religious road. We've covered that. But
okay.
I think if maybe I'll just stick to the questions.
I was just going to say, well, you've had a couple of NDEs, especially when you've told your wife that you're going to be somewhere and you haven't.
No, that's more of a close encounter. That's a close encounter with the third kind. But anyway, no, if there is a CME from the sun, again, Chris is wondering, is there anything at all we can do to survive it? I mean, based as Alan said, in the Carrington effect back in the 1800s, that everything electronic, not that there was not a lot of electronics around at the time, but everything was kind of blown out. I mean, the whole world we live in seems to be based on electronics. I mean, power stations, etc., etc., etc. I mean, could we survive it, and what could we do?
Well, depending upon how direct the blast is, it could wipe out at least a third of the Earth's electronics, and perhaps more with the satellites being hit, because they're more visible around the other side of the planet than just the surface. With a CME, you're going to see obviously electronic effects. That'll fry most electronics that aren't hardened, like military electronics. To survive something like this, you virtually need to get the 8-minute warning, or the 2-hour warning, whatever it is, from the government or from astronomers who say, wow, it's heading our way. We've seen, the light arrives before the actual CME does by several hours or half a day. Get to a cave, get underground, and hide from the direct radiation and the impact. Now, even the Hopi are getting ready for several days of extreme heat from the sun. They're making underground mud igloos, or kivas they call them, and stocking it with dried beans and corn and what water they can spare in these little kivas, getting ready for that event. Holly and I know this. We were down there visiting with the Hopi as their guests, so I'm telling you straight from the horse's mouth. Now, on the sides of the planet, the rest of the 2/3 of the planet that isn't in the direct impact area, their electronics will be compromised to a degree because of their connectivity to the other nations and other power systems. Our satellite navigation systems will be down, GPS will be down all over the planet because the whole constellation will be impacted by this. When you get over the heat period, because the whole planet will heat up, but just because you're not on the side that gets the direct impact, it doesn't mean you're escaped from the heat of several weeks of extreme heat in the atmosphere. Once that's over, then you've got to rebuild, and certainly energy and water will be the gold of that time. Water so you can survive, and energy so you can build to regain, the level of industrialization we had before the CME. That's why I think the new world economy, whatever they call that digital currency, will be based on a country's energy resources, whether it be oil or solar or whatever. They'll be linked to energy resources, the ERG, or energy unit there.
Yeah, just in relation to the CME, Jimmy on People's Internet Radio suggests that the CME is coming from the sun all the time, and that the magnetosphere will protect us. What's your thoughts on that one?
Well, the CMEs do come glancing blows. But remember the Carrington event, the magnetosphere at that time, the Earth's magnetic field creates that, did not protect the Earth enough to, negate the charges and various other things that were passed into the Earth's electromagnetic field. Now, since the Earth's magnetic field has been weakening since that time, it's even less of a shield to the sun's radiation than it was before. This is why people are very concerned about a polar magnetic pole shift on the Earth, because during that shift, the field will weaken even more as the new north and new south pole take their place. Look, while we've got a magnetic field that's as weak as it is and threatening to invert, a coronal mass ejection of significance directed straight at the Earth, like a halo event, and if it were the same strength as the Carrington event, it would be disastrous. We would not be protected from that.
Do you reckon, though, that the military would have in their arsenal, you know, I mean, obviously they would want to protect themselves as well. Do you reckon that they would have the technology that's kind of alluded to in the Men in Black? Again, I think it's the third Men in Black film. They have this thing that they reckon I can't ArcNet or something that the military have that would protect the globe.
No, you're talking about an amount of energy that's absolutely enormous, and perhaps the HARP facilities of all the countries working in tandem might be able to pump up the ionosphere to be somewhat of a shield stronger than it is now, but it would take years of pumping energy into the ionosphere, and in concert, not in conflict as they are now. Other than that, I can't see that we would have access to the amount of energy needed to increase the shield effect. I mean, we're talking about a huge amount of energy.
Stan, do you think that the chemtrails is a shield that they're putting up there? Do you think that's what they're doing with the chemtrails?
Well, certainly, I believe the chemtrails are being used to shield portions of the Earth's surface from the increased heating and various electromagnetic radiation coming from the sun. That I'm almost positive of. But as far as shielding us permanently from the effects of a coronal mass ejection like that, no. I mean, these things are temporary, and they're over various selected areas, not over the entire planet at any one time. These chemtrails, I'm reasonably certain, again, do have atomic level metal powders, in them, which are reflecting certain amounts of radiation, certain wavelengths, which protect us from overheating underneath that. And when that stops, if you think our weather has been chaotic now, wait till they stop the chemtrailing. It's going to suddenly be very bad.
Okay, and this radiation, obviously you're saying that the Hopi are getting ready, so they know something's going to be coming quite imminent. It's going to be quite soon, and it's going to obviously affect the planet. Timelines, it's very hard to stick on dates, but the fact they're getting ready must mean it must be sometime soon.
Well, yes, and Holly and I have asked them, and we joke about the answer they gave us. They just folded their arms and looked at us and said, soon. So it's Hopi soon. When we visited down there, we were actually invited, and I shared some things on the expansion of the Earth and the increase in volcanoes and earthquakes over on the West Coast here with them. And one of their senior prophecy keepers, shall we call him, of the Hopi, said, we have been expecting you. The chief the leader that was having us in his home said, my daughter-in-law saw your face. You are the 5th of 8 messengers that we will get before the destruction of the United States and various other things happen, before the heat hits and stuff like that. Now, at that time, and that visit was in 96, there's plenty of time for 3 other messengers to have come to the Hopi since I was there as number 5. With the things happening in the sun that we can see right now, I do feel it's imminent. Yeah,
I think, yeah, I have a feeling myself that there's something around the corner and it's not going to be too far away. Steve, you have more questions there? For Stan?
I do. Stan, Siobhan is wondering, do you believe that it may be the case that those who are in control are using the good book for their agenda in relation to weather patterns and the control of same?
Boy, I'd say that'd be pretty spectacular if they had that much energy at their disposal, because the powers that be that she mentions are primarily the Western world and not including the Orient, China and Indonesia and Japan. I don't know that we can blanket say that they've all been controlling this. This is not a unified effort yet. This next great conflict, probably starting in the Middle East, is what it's supposed to be, the unifying factor of the planet. But I don't see that the Chinese will fall into line there. So I don't think that all of this can be due to the globalists using biblical prophecy to their advantage and making things happen. They certainly may relate these things to biblical prophecy. I think that might be what Sean was saying, but that means that all these press releases and things accenting various things that are mentioned in the biblical prophecies would be an effort to herd the sheep, you and I, into a certain gate based on the fear of these things happening in our lifetime. I think they will, but I do think that the globalists could well be using that as a method to drive us.
And what about CERN and HARP? Do you reckon they have any room in there as well?
HARP, as I mentioned just briefly before, has the ability to pump energy up into the ionosphere. At certain frequencies, it can actually heat the ionosphere over where the HARP transmission is occurring. Now, there are at least 8 HARP facilities around the planet that have the ability to pump up the upper ionosphere over them. But when they do this, it makes kind of like a splash wave, if you wish, in the ionosphere over them that spreads around the planet, meets the antipodal point of the planet, and bounces back. And when you have 8 of these working at different frequencies and different intensities, they can work against each other. And so you need to have them work in concert. Now, this is just the 8 that we know of. If you had a bunch of them pumping energy up into there in concert, and together, same frequency, same intensity, this could well affect, the weather and even earthquakes and superstorms. CERN, on the other hand, does not operate all the time, and even though, it consumes huge amounts of energy for the magnets, the little particles that it spins around and collides might make a miniature black hole, a micro black hole that would only exist for a fraction of a second. That's not the issue. It's the magnetic field itself being on all that time for several days in a row, spinning up these particles. That does affect the Earth's magnetic field in that region, and that can cause factors like the magnetic field, the core of the planet, to vibrate, to alter its spin axis, which is happening. We know that. But that's only for a few days, and it would only be a very minor part of the Earth's spin rotation. So are they using CERN? Are they using HARP to affect the weather? Perhaps, but HARP would be the only one I can see that would be a major possibility.
Yeah, we from information that we've seen just in relation to HARP, we found out, I think it was probably last year, that depending, as you say, on the frequency, and like we would understand the ionosphere ourselves in relation to radio frequencies, but depending on the frequency that you pump up to the ionosphere and use it kind of as a refractor, I'll eventually get the word right, that you could, in certain circumstances, depending on the frequency, they say because everything vibrates at a frequency, you could direct a lot of wattage or kilowattage or megawattage at the seabed and cause like the tectonic plates to move and cause all sorts of devastation. And someone actually alluded to the fact that the tsunami that we had on St. Stephen's Day a couple of years back,
2004
was it? Yeah, they reckon that could have been HARP technology.
Let's look at this. I hear what you're saying, and I agree to a point. If you take a fire hose, fireman, he's putting out a fire, and he's running several horsepower worth of water pressure through that hose up to the target. Now, that fireman is not exerting horsepower strength to steer that. It's only human strength steering a lot more energy in that hose. So a lot less energy that's coming out of the hose can steer it. Now, the HARP effect is like that. You can create like the fireman, a fireman effect that comes out of the ionosphere to steer something as powerful as a hurricane. Not cause it, but to steer it by heating or cooling an area along its path. So, HARP could be used to do something mighty like that. It can also be used, like Nikola Tesla said last century, to direct energy throughout the entire ionosphere and turn it on like a big neon globe or bulb around the entire planet, so you'd have no darkness at all. You'd be able to grow day and night. Or you could drop lightning down out of the upper ionosphere to a target on the Earth if you had somebody that you wanted to attack.
He did mention about that his laser beam technology, didn't he? Tesla did say that. Plus, he had the Warcliffe technology to bring the energy down from the ionosphere to give people electricity for free, until J.P. Morgan decided that couldn't be metered, so he decided to stop that experiment. Now, I believe the Russians are actually looking at, they've done something like that, similar to that Tesla experiment. And they're working on it, so that'll be quite interesting. I don't know where we're going regarding the planet and everything else that's going on. I mean, even if you look at the likes of Yellowstone, and that's a massive caldera, and they're talking about that actually being very active at the moment. Have you heard any more news on that?
Well, over the past few months, yes. The Yellowstone volcano, they have recently released the data saying that you don't have to wait 600,000 years for an eruption. A major eruption, perhaps, but smaller magmatic eruptions have occurred in the terms of thousands of years, and we might well see a minor, for Yellowstone, a minor eruption in our lifetime. I do know that the U.S. government has been extremely concerned and has put a lot of personnel and equipment into the Yellowstone Park area and adjacent areas to the northwest to real-time monitor with a supercomputer the tremors and the magnetic flows underneath it to see if they can get a warning before this minor eruption occurs. And that started a couple of years ago, and they've signed everyone, the personnel, to non-disclosure agreements to do that. So they are concerned here about that, yes.
Yeah, because there is a lady on YouTube called Mary Greenlee, a number of other people, but Mary, and she seems to be tracking Yellowstone, and she's noticed that on the USGS website there's been anomalies as in information missing, and they're not reporting certain eruptions or activity in Yellowstone, maybe purposely not putting it up there, and she just had, flagged that up as a concern. Now, I'm sure if there was something going on, well, you'd like to think that they would tell people to kind of clear the premises as such if Yellowstone is going to get active. But that's such a massive caldera. I mean, if that goes off, it's not just going to affect North America; it'll affect us globally.
Yes, it will. And, depending upon how high the ash cloud is and how dense it is, it will certainly affect you guys over there and into, the rest of Europe and Russia, the Northern Hemisphere. The thing, if you put yourself into the position of someone that could release information to the public about Yellowstone officially, you would be faced with the same dilemma that the USGS guys had in Pinatubo before it erupted. They saw earthquakes occurring underneath the volcano, but they weren't sure, because it's not an exact science, that it was going to happen. So their dilemma was this: do we tell the public it's going to happen and have mass panic and chaos, interrupted business, and cost lives and money as people panicked, or do we just be quiet and hope that it doesn't happen? We'll tell them when it starts, but not to alert them beforehand. Now, if you're looking at the Yellowstone event, and you were in charge of whether you could disseminate the information to the American population or to the world for that matter, would you say, hey, look, guys, officially I think that there may be a dirty big eruption coming out of Yellowstone, and it might affect, 14 states downwind, but we're not sure. Now, can you imagine, knowing human nature, what would happen after that to property values and migration patterns and work and panic? It would be almost anarchy the closer you got to the Yellowstone area. So what you would do is you would probably leak information out through unofficial sources, blog talk radio, internet, whatever, and let people be told that this is going on, but they're not being told about it. It's kept secret, so that those who are clever enough to see between the lines and say, you know what, there might be something to this. I think I will move very quietly to another state, or I will prepare in this manner or that. That way you have a grassroots preparation kind of the people that are thinkers. And as you get closer to the moment, then you can announce officially that, yes, it looks like it's getting active. But by that time, the people that were going to move and going to make preparations have already done so. I mean, no human nature, because it's like a stampede in a fire. You've got to control the announcement so that it doesn't cause a stampede, especially if you're wrong and it never happens.
Well, John has said it time and time again on the show that the naval chaps who retire end up in the Ozarks for this particular reason, should something happen. So they obviously suspect something, because John, when he was on the show, and I've heard a number of shows John has done, and he said the Navy guys I think it was in the 90s, they went to this meeting and they were told about what's going to be coming down the line, and they recommend that you move away from the coast or you go to higher ground, the Ozarks being very popular. And obviously they have apparently an underground base up there anyway. And a lot of people are kind of moving away from the coast because of something that might be happening. And is this obviously, what you're referring to? Now, funny enough, you should say that. I was smiling when you were talking about that, because one of the questions I put to people, let's say about the Planet X Nibiru, say that comes in. Now, I mentioned earlier in the show about Putin supposed to make an announcement, according to Nancy Leader on ZetaTalk.com, that he was supposed to mention about Nibiru, but that announcement didn't take place. And I kind of say to people, well, if you were Barack Obama and you were told that Planet X or something was going to happen to the planet and there's nothing that you can actually do about it, would you tell the people? And
right.
The majority of people I've said that to, they've all said, no, there's no point.
That's right. That's right. What you would do in service to the human civilization is that you would make preparations as best you can to preserve living humans and DNA and technology in a place that might survive what is coming, so that you could rebuild from that point, like after the flood. Other than that, what else could you do?
Well, we have the seed banks in Norway and probably a few more around the world. And we know about them and the preparation that they've been through and what they've done there. And, talk is going around the internet, as you've just said. You disseminate the information through the internet, so you don't scare people. It's all done kind of quietly and organised on a grassroots basis, and people kind of, get sorted as best they can. And, we talk about it as, I know people see it as doom and gloom, but at the end of the day, it depends on your perception of the information. I'd rather see it as, I always say it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And if you do store an extra few bits of food and a few extra bits of water and nothing happens, well, you just use it, and that's just the way it is. But if something does happen, then you want to be prepared, and you have to kind of plan in advance. As you say, the Hopi Indians are getting ready now, so they obviously know something's coming. But more on it, rather than looking at a kind of celestial problem, let's look further down. Let's look at the planet Earth and the financial system. With everything that's going on at the moment, we know the current fiat currency system is a big Ponzi scheme. And it's like nobody's been added to the bottom of the pyramid, and it's beginning to collapse now. And there's a lot of companies and banking and central bank all trading insolvent at the moment. Where do you see that happening? What do you see happening in the next few months regarding the financial system?
Well, as I mentioned before, I think it's going to be some global trigger. And I think it will happen in the Middle East over the Iran-Israel conflict, and that will cause a panic in the global economy, especially if nuclear weapons are used, because then everyone, whether it be American or Irish or European, whatever, will think we're next. The nukes will hit here. Because of this, a lot of work will stop, a lot of production will stop, and there will be an urgent closing of the banks to restructure, for our benefit, of course, they will say, and they will come up with this new global currency, a digital currency, to bail you out and to be sure everybody has food and water as they restructure the global political and economic situation. So I think that's what we watch for, is a global meltdown caused by a conflict in the Middle East, which I think we will see before the end of the year. I just can't see it lasting longer than that.
Okay, based on your biblical prophecies, myself and
now,
Steve...
you're not talking religious stuff, are you?
Well, I'm just curious, because obviously, if we're talking about a one-world government and a one-world currency and the cabal and everything else, that's really slavery and servitude as far as I'm concerned, and it's not what we're supposed to be, and not, the people who we should be. And we are more than just physical beings, we are spiritual beings. And where does the whole biblical side come into it to free us from this kind of slavery and servitude?
Well, first off, let me say this. I am in favor of a global currency, a global government, a fair one. But the problem is, I don't see any human beings that I have ever heard of that could run it fairly and not be corrupted. That's why the biblical promise of our Creator, Jesus, the hybrid being, and this is a good day to talk about it because this is Resurrection Day in the Christian faith, that he would be a perfect and fair king to rule the planet. And we would still have nations, but they would be under a global directorship or kingship of himself. And that way, then, the Irish could keep their pint of ale and their customs, and so could the Yanks, and, so could the Middle East, but still be part of a global system that is run fairly. And so we don't have these, currency wars and stuff like that, and we don't have corporations that are looting us. This would all be fair, and I would support that. And I think that having faith that Jesus is coming back and will do this is what we should be accepting now. And it makes it a lot easier to understand and accept the immediate future.
Okay.
It's temporary.
Where do you think the rapture fits into that?
Well, I'm one of those people in the Christian faith that think that this will occur right around the beginning of the 7-year tribulation period, and that before it can happen, that the Antichrist of this age will have to be identified, to be revealed. And to that end, the discovery I made about King Solomon and the 666 business, I am pretty sure that we know now that the Antichrist will have the name of Solomon, whether it's a nickname or whether it's a family name. And in the Middle East, he will be a Middle Easterner, and it will be something like Suleiman, Soleimani, something of that nature, or Solomon, like in Saudi Arabia. Young Prince Mohammed Solomon is the head of their defense facilities, or their department, and he is orchestrating stuff in Yemen at the moment militarily, and he's a leading runner for the Antichrist of this age. There are 4 or 5 other people that we've put up on the website saying this could be, that could be, but they all have to do with the name Solomon. So keep an eye on that. And when you see that man, making a peace treaty with the nations around Israel, probably after the conflict starts, that person then allows the rapture to occur after that at any time.
Okay, and Nostradamus predicted that this Antichrist would have a blue turban or blue hat or something like that.
Yes. Interestingly, in Iran, the military forces, the Quds forces under General Solomon, wear blue turbans or blue, French caps, like the special forces would use. Maybe their leader will wear a proper blue turban. I don't know.
Well, this is the thing. Doesn't NATO wear blue?
Blue helmets, yes.
Yeah.
But whether their leader would, I don't know.
Yeah, it's in the very kind of strange times. Whatever way you look at it, it seems to be an awful lot going on. Now, there's been talk 3 times they have tried to push the button for World War III, and 3 times Russia and China, I suppose, have resisted the temptation to do it. And do you think that's going to happen?
Well, eventually, I think that's what's called the Armageddon conflict at the end of the 7-year period. But right now, just speaking secularly, Russia is bound by contracts, by treaties with Iran, Syria, major countries in the Middle East. Now, if Israel does make a preemptive strike against, say, Iran, Russia will be called in to defend the Arab nations that are stricken by the preemptive attack. But Russia knows that America is sitting over here with a nuclear arsenal that could make it hard for Russia, striking back. Even though we have a weak president, that president could be replaced either by electoral process or by an overthrow in a time of crisis, which would then leave the U.S. military in charge of a nuclear arsenal that could hurt the Russians if they were to go into the Middle East to honor the treaties they already have in place. So therefore, the United States has to be lessened, weakened, removed as a major threat to Russia in what is coming. Now, a minor war between, Israel and Iran and the surrounding Arab countries, 3 or 4 of them, that would signal the beginning of a World War III in the minds of the people, which would cry out for peace and security. Somebody make peace over there so we can have peace in the world. At that time, America will have already been neutralized, either from internal revolt, revolution, geophysical sources, whatever. Something will take America out of the fray, and people will be looking into Europe, for a solution to what is coming.
And what do you think is going to happen to America?
Well, our friends the Hopis told us that they were going to be invaded by the Chinese, the Russians, and some countries from the Middle East, and would be destroyed. There would be major destruction of the cities, and as an entity that it would still exist, but very few people would survive it. And the survivors that are non-Indian, non-Hopi, some of them would form groups and join with the Hopi and perhaps part of the Navajo and go up into the Four Corners region of Colorado and start a new tribe of man in the new America, whatever it is. But they are looking at mainly warfare, nuclear and biological, wiping out most of America.
Well, that's and do you think, is this a prophecy? Do you think this is going to happen?
Let's say the potential for it to happen is pregnant at the moment. It really is. You just look at the world events and the amount of money that America owes China, the threat of Russia arming, Putin waving the saber, and the fact that we've got a weak administration, a very weak administration in the White House, puts us at, and this administration, by the way, has been weakening our military left, right, and center, puts us in a very vulnerable position, and I do think that we're going to see that happen soon.
Right, okay. Yeah, there seems to be an awful lot going on over there. And a number of reports from people that we've got sent in to us regarding people seeing the likes of Russian troops and Chinese troops over in America already doing exercises. Now, this Jade Helm 15 that seems to be going on at the moment. Can you tell us about that?
Well, I'm not looking forward to it. I don't really see a logical reason for it to occur, but, what do I know? I mean, it's they say it's because of overseas operations they want to do, and so they're using the Southwest as a very representative terrain and circumstance and people to what they would face in the Middle East if some kind of an operation over there. But you got to wonder what kind of an operation they're talking about that would be, similar to here. When they're going into cities and like door-to-door type testing, with the pretend invasion, why are they doing that? They're not going to face the same kind of door-to-door circumstances here that they would in the Middle East because they aren't as technologically advanced as a population as we are. They don't have the same cultural values at all. So it does raise alarm bells. There's no question about that.
Do you think it's getting the psyche kicked off with people regarding martial law and getting them accustomed to it before they actually try and bring it in?
Could well be. And it could also be like waving a red flag in front of the bull so that some of the very right-wing organizations here say, well, that's far enough, and make a preemptive strike on the government or government facilities because of that operation, which would then demand martial law.
Well, they've been... Sorry, I was just going to say, they've been trying to do it. You had the Bundy Ranch episode, and then you had Ferguson over there as well. And I think they really are trying to instigate martial law in some way and get the people rallied up or riled up to that level. Oh,
I agree completely. Yeah.
Okay, and obviously in some states in America, you can carry arms and get arms quite freely, but unfortunately, the likes of Ireland, you can only get rifles and you have to have a license, and it's quite a very strategic, a very difficult process to go through to do that, to try and even get your hands on the shotgun. And you're lucky to be able to do that, because being able to arm yourselves and keeping your arms for that, and especially the local military. I mean, God knows what's going to happen, but there seems to be an awful lot on the cards. We have about 10 minutes left, Stan. So, what would be the kind of good news? What would you say is the good news or good stuff that you've heard in your travels that might, enlighten some of us to what might be going on?
Well, at the risk of sounding religious again, my safe place for all this is the fact that this was all prophesied in the Bible, and we understand that this time must pass before we can have the 1,000 years of peace that were promised under a fair king. And there's a lot more to happen that people will think is the good news, and it will really be a deception. This is the alien UFO invasion that will be officially announced here fairly shortly. And people will be told, yeah, look, we didn't want to panic you and whatever, but they are here. They mean us no harm, and they come to help us set up a world government in a time of our crisis. So the UFO sightings have increased. We've been watching it for the past, 15, 20 years. And the people have been conditioned with movies like V, back in the 70s, where the aliens came looking like humans, but they were really reptilians with, human skins pulled over their reptilian bodies. And they came, in peace, love, and harmony and all that, and turned out to be liars and enslaved the population. But all these things are going to happen for real, if I understand the Hebrew I've retranslated properly from the book of Daniel. And we will have a world leader who is backed by technology from, quote-unquote, aliens from other worlds, which will, I'm pretty sure, be the fallen ones from the parallel universe the Bible speaks of.
Yeah.
Now, that time will pass. Don't be deceived by that if you're here. But that time will pass quickly, within 7 years. And there will be an Earth rebuilt. The surface will be rebuilt, cleaned up. The environment will be cleaned up. And we'll be given methods to run our world in a manner that doesn't destroy the environment, that encourages life. And, there are going to be massive changes here. And if I understand the prophecies correctly, even animals will get along a lot better, where it says the lion will lay down with the lamb and not devour it. The demands for life will be different. If you study some of the spiritual teachings, you know that you do not live by eating alone. There are people that can live by the Spirit. And this might be more widespread during that time, even though I think people still, cook and eat and party and that kind of stuff, but within the allowable parameters. So it's good news coming. We've just got a hard patch ahead of us, and our trick will be to get through it without selling our soul, as it were, to the powers that be.
Yeah, I totally agree. The whole kind of microchip and everything else. Now, Werner von Braun actually mentioned that the last card would be Project Bluebeam, and that would be all kind of erosion there on their side. It could be the problem, reaction, solution, Hegelian dialectic, saying that, these aliens could be the negative, and we need your tax money to actually build machines to, keep them away, to fight them and all that kind of stuff, which is something I've mentioned on the show before. And, Nostradamus, I think, predicted about 7.5 years of war, and then after that we'll have 1,000 years of peace and prosperity.
Right.
So I think that's his prediction as well, on one of the things that he came across. I was going to say that actually about the UFO side, because there has been a massive increase in sightings globally. Even over the last few months, it has been phenomenal. And the governments are kind of drip feeding and releasing information bit by bit and talking about it. And every time, you switch on the TV, I'm not a big TV watcher, but guaranteed you're going to see something got to do with aliens or UFO crafts or outer space or something. It's just, it's getting into the people's psyche. So maybe the disclosure is going to be there, but it'll be timed by Obama or whoever, because we know Obama's a puppet anyway. So it'll be timed. They'll tell him when to come out and say it, and then of course people will say, "Yeah, we knew there was going to be ETs," and but they'll still do it probably piecemeal, because there's people out there who still have no clue whatsoever, and they'll be shocked, and they won't believe it. You're always going to get them anyway, aren't you? So,
yeah.
But it'll be an interesting few years.
I often talk about this situation in an analogy of when my brother and I were young and still living at home and shared a bedroom, and it came time for go to bed at night. You'd throw pillows at each other or fight and have little war games in your room. And Dad down the hallway would say, if you don't be quiet, I'm going to kill you. You'd go to sleep. And you'd fight a bit more, and he'd say, if you don't stop, I want to come in with the belt. And we knew this was a meat-cleaving, terrible thing that would destroy life as we knew it if he brought it in. So, you'd still kind of laugh and joke, make noise, until, bang, he was there at the door, threw the door open, and the hall light would cast his shadow in, and there was the belt. And we knew that we had to be friends, no fighting, go right to sleep, get along peacefully. Now, I use that analogy as the brothers being the nations of the earth, the peoples of the earth, the religions of the earth, the cultures of the earth, all kind of bickering with each other instead of being quiet and peaceful and getting along. And Dad, representing this force of alien technology and beings coming to the planet saying, we have the ability to wipe you out. But if you'll get along and let us show you, we'll bring you into a peaceful world. Let's try it for a while. Yeah, and that is what we're seeing.
Well, I totally agree. People are beginning to wake up en masse globally. It's phenomenal and brilliant to see. But the whole thing about I suppose if you want to go down the kind of biblical side, if you are a person who has the right morals, but the person that's living beside you is a psychopath or no empathy or everything else, the whole kind of judgment thing is a bit kind of, there's a bit of a grey area, and I'm not too sure how that would be done.
Well, if you have a global economy that's digital, number one, you're going to be able to control, as the leaders of this planet, whoever they are at that time, you'll be able to control everyone. There won't be crime getting away with anything, because if they don't have a personal ID mark and a digital footprint, they can't buy or sell. So it's going to make a lot of people become honest out of necessity. And a lot of people being locked up, too, because they'll be identified as criminals. Now, as far as making the neighbor that's hostile get along with you, the only thing that will do that is the threat of force from the world government at that time. They will say peaceful things, but believe me, the way they enforce it, you don't want to be on the bad end. Sadly, if there are any Christians here at that time, or Jewish folk, they're going to be the target of this new world order, because they will not compromise into the new world religion. And that's being formed as we speak in the Vatican.
Yeah, see, the whole, I know where you're going from regarding using technology and having a one world system and one currency and everything else. And I can understand the positives. But the trouble is, it's the people who are going to be running it. That's the concern.
It absolutely is. And you know what? If it were a matter of convincing the leaders of the various countries, nations of the world to make this world government, that would be easily done. Blackmail, enticements, greed, whatever, you could do that. But that will not make a stable world government. You've got to have the masses, the people, want this new world order and cry out for it and be so disgusted with their own governments and their own religions that they will turn to something new for peace at any price. And that's what we're seeing.
And that is, over here, the current Irish government must be the most hated government in the history of the Irish state at the moment with what they're doing. Wow. You're talking up to 100,000 people going to be evicted from their homes this year alone. We have two suicides a day over here in Ireland. Probably even more. And we only have a population of 4.4 million. So it's just incredible what's going on over here in Ireland at the moment and what the government are doing. They're running the country into the ground. There's no empathy. There's no morals. It's like they're on autopilot and they're being told by the cabal, this is what you have to do, which is the cabal being over in Europe, the IMF, and they're just doing everything they're being told, and the amount of devastation it's causing, this austerity it's causing. But we are seeing green shoots. The likes of Greece, You know,
Yes,
with the left,
Cyprus,
yeah, exactly. You know, they're deciding to come out of the IMF and have their own currency, and I believe they're going to be talking to Russia and China to help them, and also Iceland as well has also been looking at moving away from the current banking system and setting up their own currency because they know the current financial system can be manipulated and controlled. So there are
there are green shoots, as you say. And one thing that might be a kind of a semi-bright spot is this. The behind-the-scenes world planners are going to destroy the Illuminists that we all point a finger at. These Illuminists are being used as puppets themselves. We're talking about a much bigger, more powerful organization.
Do you think there are, just on the last question, do you think there are white hats working for us?
Yes, I do.
Good. Okay. Well, that's good to know. Stan, it's been a fantastic interview. Brilliant information. We do appreciate you coming on, and we're definitely going to have to do a part 2 because there's always so much to talk about. And there's the stuff that we've only kind of scratched the surface. We need to get into and talk about more. So maybe in a few months' time we'll get you back on and doing a part 2 if you're up for that.
Well, Alan and Steve, thanks for the warning.
Hopefully before September, we'll try and do that.
All right.
Listen, thanks a lot for coming on. I'm going to pass you off to Steve. Steve's going to get all your details so people will know where to find you.
Okay.
Yeah, Stan, it's been great information. Count myself lucky to be here and to be able to listen to this information tonight. It's definitely food for thought, as I said to you earlier, and definitely, I mean, we do have the link here to your website. We do have the link that you sent us earlier, which I will check out. I'm going to just call out your website, and I have posted on the chat room as well. The website is www.standeyo.com. Have you got a YouTube channel, or can people find you on anywhere else, maybe social media or somewhere else?
Well, yeah, YouTube, I think I have a couple of, I'm not sure if they have the videos there, but you can search on YouTube for a number of the lectures I've given. People post them all the time. Just Stan Deyo, and you'll see it on YouTube. As far as Facebook, I am there, but don't ask for friend things because it just clutters up my inbox there. I forget what you call it, stuff that people, if I have a lot of friends.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
You can visit there if you want, see the photos and stuff that are there, but don't send me a friend request.
Unless your friends or family don't bother sending you a request.
That's it.
No problem at all. Stan, just stay with us there for a minute, and we're going to pop over to a musical break. We'll be back after this.
This is Open Your Mind Radio on OYMradio.com, UnitedWeStrike.com, and PeoplesInternetRadio.com.
Finally, a decent song, says Chris, or Snowy, or someone says it. Yeah, a bit of Tears for Fears, Mad World. I thought that was kind of an apt tune to play. Seems that we are in a bit of a mad world.
We are in a bit of a mad world. Great information from Stan about what's going on. Hopi Indian Prophecy has been over there and spoke to them. Very interesting to know. We'll just have to keep our eye on things and see what's going on. I have been doing a lot of kind of researching, going through the internet, looking at some videos, trying to get an idea of what's going on, and keep the finger on the pulse as much as we can. But to be honest with you, we never really know for sure what's going on. We can only put what we find and put it out there on the show, and then let you guys make up your own mind and do your own research and decide for yourself. That's it, really.
What's the chap's name? Film I once seen, Snoop Doggy Dogg was in it. Here we go. A little bit of movie trivia. He says, we just lay it out for y'all to play it out. Do you like that?
Yeah, that's good enough. That's good. Yeah. That's good, yeah. So how's your week?
My week's been fine. Oh, absolutely fine, yeah. I've just a couple of things on the list, which I'll go, looking at the time, I'll go through them real quick. Yeah, speaking of the flat earth, I'm not asking anyone to believe anything. I'm not selling anything at all. Just information that's come up on my radar. I've started to look at this information, and based on what I've seen, it all makes sense. Then again, I could be told tomorrow, someone could say the earth is star-shaped and show me a bunch of information. I'll have a look at that as well. Like, I don't get too bogged down by these things. I look at the information and I'll kind of go, as someone said to us a long time ago, I put it in my file and I'll file it away in the back of the mind somewhere. But the information that I've seen, yeah, look, it kind of looks from the information that it may be flat based on information from a chap there back in the 50s, an Admiral Richard E. Byrd. Check him out as well, and also have a look on the internet. Anyone who's kind of interested, have a look at the Flat Earth I think there's a YouTube channel. Just stick it in there into YouTube. There's lots of videos. Check out a guy called Mark Sargent. He's put Flat Earth clues, kind of a series of 11 videos together. He spells it out, beautifully. There's also another chap called Eric Dubay. There's also a link there as well. The Atlantean Conspiracy that I was looking at during the week. There's so much information on it. I haven't had a chance really to get through the whole lot. But from what I've seen, it's interesting. Put it that way.
That's
it's definitely interesting.
That Admiral Byrd, that's Operation High Jump, where you went up to the Antarctic and they were kicked off the Antarctic and had to come back.
No, he actually done a series of expeditions to the Antarctic. He went there several times.
Oh, right.
And see, the last one that he went, he led a military exercise there. And based on that one there, which is the last one he did, he came back, he retired, and there was no more expeditions to the Antarctic. And see, if you go there or you try to go there, you can get so far. You can go and you can take some pictures, and this sort of carry on. But there's a line that you cannot cross, and it's enforced by military. And you have to ask, based on what Byrd said when he came back, there was so much reserves of oil and gas, and I think it was plutonium, or it was either plutonium or uranium, I can't remember which. He said there was enough coal to fuel the world. The whole world, he says, and there's so many resources down there that to this day it's kind of amazing that Exxon, Shell or any of these big companies haven't gone down there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of information. I'm not asking anyone to believe it. There's some of the stuff that I believe. When I say believe, I use the term loosely, as in the OYM believe, the fluid belief system, because it makes sense today. I could hear something else tomorrow, which would kind of may dismiss that, and that's just the way it goes. So look, again, just check it out yourselves if anyone is interested in it. It's not for everybody. If someone come up and told you we're living in a dome like a snow globe, it's enough to rock some people's world. So if you're going to look at the information, put a disclaimer on it, and don't get too bogged down by what you come across, because at the end of the day, we don't know whether it's true or false. Anyway, there we go.
There's another spin on that Admiral Byrd story about him being kicked off. And they actually left the Antarctic quite quickly because they were being attacked. That's another spin on it.
I haven't heard that
there
one.
You go.
That could be true.
There you go.
That could be very true. Anyway, it was April the 1st during the week, and for the Irish Water, there was a radio station, I believe, in Dublin. They had a skit on it whereby they had someone on pretending to be from Irish Water, saying if you didn't pay, they were going to got some court order and signed by the government, blah blah blah, that they could go into your home and take goods to the value of whatever the alleged debt was. People were outraged, and people were seemingly ringing up this radio station and very expletive in what they were saying. Then they announced, it's an April Fool joke. Well, do you know what? It's probably funny at that point in time, but I didn't hear it myself. But when I did hear about it, I thought it wasn't really that funny. But that's just me. I do have a sense of humour, but not when it comes to slagging off, people who are dead against it and protesters and
7 people being arrested.
And 7 people being arrested as well. Last thing on my list is, this is kind of a big thing that I was looking into again during the week based on information we heard from last week, the subject of addiction. And I've just been doing some poking around, and in relation to Facebook is number one, and smartphones, and the combination of the two, there's a whole big plethora of information out there in relation to how addictive Facebook is and how addictive your smartphone is. And if you think I'm not addicted, I only use my phone every now and again. Go to the Google Store. I'm not sure if there's one for Apple, the iStore, I don't know, but the Google Store anyway, there's an app called Mental, Menthal. It was designed by a foreign guy, can't remember what nationality he was, do apologise, but it monitors what you do on your phone, and you can check it at the end of a day or a week or whenever, and it will actually tell you how, based on let's say a 12-hour period, how often you were on Facebook, how often you tweeted or texted, or even how many times you unlocked your phone just to look at the screen to see if there's any, updates on anything. So if you reckon you might be addicted to your smartphone, or someone may have said it to you in the past, you're never off your phone, have a look at that app anyway, just stick it on and see for yourself. But that's definitely one that's gaining a lot of momentum. They're actually calling it an epidemic now, the addiction to the smartphones. I know they can be great, and they do have a place in society. But I reckon, like when I was actually in a shopping centre yesterday in County Meath in Navan, and the amount of people going around with their phone in their hands and texting, and even people in company, I thought, Jesus H, whatever, this is ridiculous. You know, it was only normally I wouldn't have even copped that, but because I'm kind of looking into it now, I'm saying that it is a big deal. No matter where you go, if the phone is not in the hand, it's never far from the hand. Anyway, there we go. Look, that's pretty much my week in a nutshell. Yeah, you've got 4 minutes. How's your week?
Well, lucky enough, I've only got one thing on it, which is pretty good. I've been looking at the price of a transfer switch, and to get it fitted and get the item, get the actual switch.
Hang
and
on
get
a second.
it fitted.
Before you continue, where is this getting fitted?
Right. Okay. Well, I'll explain. The transfer switch is what you put up in where your power supply is in your house. So if you have a generator and your power goes in your house, you flick the switch and you switch it over to the generator, and then you switch on your generator, and then you have power to your house. Limited power, but you'd have power. And the transfer switches are very big in the States, but they're only beginning to come over here. So I contacted a company down in Dublin, and they said they would supply and fit a transfer switch for €350. And I believe it's an extra cost if you want to have the generator plug on it as well. So if anybody knows of an electrician who can do it cheaper than €350, just let us know. It might be of interest. I'm not saying I have that money to spend, but
I'll do it for a tenner.
Will you? But it needs to be, you know, well, we don't want kind of Jimmy's mate who knows a little bit about, electrics. We're going to have it certified by an electrician.
I know Jimmy's mate, he knows lots about electrics.
Because the last thing you want is to have the power being able to accidentally, if it's wired wrong and it's actually live, if just a switch goes over. Because if the power goes down and the guys are working on it, and it does a live feed to the mains, then you could end up electrocuting them, an ESB worker who's working on the mains. So you have to really get a proper qualified electrician to put it in. So if anybody knows of an electrician and the price he would charge to supply and fit a switch, let us know, because if we do come in the money, that might be something we want to get done. But other people might want to do it as well, because with the power outages on an increase at the moment, it might be handy to have some kind of backup.
Yeah, you're not joking. What did we have? We had two.
Yeah.
In the past fortnight, past 2 weeks.
Yeah, I had two in over 2 week period as well.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's going to be mad. And one of them was actually an outage where it affected 6,000 houses, so it was pretty bad. But I'm just keeping an eye on the time there. So that's all I was going to talk about on the €350 for the transfer switch. Right, next week. Yeah.
I have one thing to mention as well while you're doing that. We got a message in from Martin on People's Internet Radio during the show. There's an online petition for Enda Kenny and the Irish government to abolish the water tax. I'm going to copy and paste it up on the chat room now, as I did earlier. If anyone feels the need, pop over and sign that. If you would, that would make Martin very happy. So thank you in advance.
Brilliant. Okay, next week, very quickly. Next week we have a chap on called Kevin J. Tedosky. He runs the Edgar Casey kind of memorial organisation. And if you don't know Edgar Casey, then I would tune in next week, because he was a prophet and he predicted a lot of things. And we're going to be talking to him about Edgar Casey and his prophecies. So tune in for that. Don't know who's on with Vin, but it's normally very good anyway. So take care, stay safe. This is Alan James. Have a good week. Enjoy your Easter, and we'll catch you next week.
Okay, from myself, Stephen George, we'll do it all again 7 days. Until then, take care, look after yourselves, and stay off Facebook and smartphones. Good luck.
Open your mind.